Yo, I was gonna talk about the face, but I realized it would just be easier to record it. But yeah, so for something like this, I would use because we need to describe all of this with geometry. That'd just be a little bit easier with with using a tool called Quad Draw in Maya. I think it's called Polybuild in Blender. So I'd give that a go, but I'd start with just a shape like this because we really need to describe all of these features like this, and even the grooves of the teeth. Like we want to get that described as well. So I'm just gonna leave that there. Let's turn on symmetry object X, and then let's turn on. Let me do a smooth. There we go. And basically the way this tool works in Maya is that you set a surface to live, and it's going to turn green like that, and you do quad draw, and then see how you can just place points on the surface. So I already have that nice clean base of like the hemisphere shape, and then for the rest of it, the way this tool works, that you're basically going to be plotting out points. And when I'm teaching topology, now this is like a little bit more organic almost. It is like a mix because it does have that hard surface feature. But what I preach is that you should paint yourself into corners because, like, look at these teeth, right? You know that you have to have geometry outlining that shape. Otherwise, it's not going to work there, right? So my first step is to start plopping down some of those points. Next, I'm going to do the eyes. Let's just start big. That's another thing. You want to start big and then go more detailed as you're working on this. And there we go. Boom. And so that's like the main bits, right? And then you can always go more detailed. I think Blender's version of this tool worked very similarly. You also want you can always add some divisions in there. I'm not going to say the hotkey because I don't want to get you confused when you're trying to like look up the Blender version of it and stuff. But you always want a line of symmetry down the middle of this guy. Let's add one right there so it terminates nicely. Let's add one right here. So basically when I'm saying paint yourself into a corner, it's like describe the key features of this, right? You want to describe those main shapes, and then you need to figure out how you're going to adapt the rest of your model to that. Also, when you're working on something that's like symmetrical in shape, like if you break apart this shape, it's basically just a rounded square, right? So whenever I'm doing that, another good principle to have is that if you make, let's take this away and take this way. So if you're making cuts across the middle, you want it to be symmetrical in terms of topology. So you have like 4 on top, 4 faces on bottom, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4 on top, 4 on bottom. And then, so if you add one down here, right, it's a good idea to add one up here. And the idea behind that is that if you have to terminate this edge loop, boom, you can just go straight across into that additional cut, right? That's the idea there. And that holds true when you're doing organic models like a human face, right? Because that's going to be much more complicated than this. And by just counting, right? So I just made another cut on this side of that ring. So I'm going to do an equivalent cut down there. And since it's a symmetrical shape in terms of like up and down and left and right of this, I know that I want to get an extra cut right here as well. And now I'm having the symmetry of the tools kind of falling apart there, but we can always fix that later. But yeah, so now let's do another cut here because we have that corresponding cut down there. And yeah, so I just painted myself into the corner by being like, I need this geometry of the eye. And then you can go in and fill the rest of that. Boom, 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 boom. And then next up, we need to figure out this. So I'm looking at this edge loop that goes up and down, and I can just feel that it's gonna terminate down here. It's gonna keep going across. And terminate down there. And then next up, let's start making the bottom mouth, right? So I'm just gonna I'm gonna add like a little space between it because it looks like if we were to like up-res that source image, that it would have an up-resed version as well. And let's do this. Now quad draw gets a little bit confused sometimes. It'll like want to make certain faces that it probably shouldn't, but that's fine. There we go. And then this will go across here, and then this will go along this. And this is kind of more for a little bit more for hard surface, like high poly modeling. But notice how I'm adding this little edge loop around here. Now we could scoot this closer to that tooth line in the future. But if you do that, you might want to have more even spacing on this stuff, right? Like notice how like tight these faces are, but then this is getting stretched out. So you might, if you're gonna do that, then you'd want to push these out and get these kind of to the edge, and then cut across there. And the good thing about that live surface, like I'm hoping Blender has the same thing, but like all of these cuts and stuff are sticking to that first shape that I made, right? That highlighted green one. But yeah, and then like I was saying before, this is more of a high poly sort of idea, but what I'm making right here is a retaining edge loop. So when I do like the smoothing operation, if this were going to be like a car, like a photorealistic car or something, when I do the smoothing operation, it would like really add this little retaining edge loop would make sure that my details on the edge of these teeth are going to stay more rigid, by virtue of having this retaining edge loop, right? And I could show you that once we're done with this, but boom, bang, bang, bang. Let's get this more in the middle. Yeah, see my symmetry's falling off there. It's gonna be a little bit of an issue, but the reason that probably happened was because I like made this away from origin and stuff, and I'm using object symmetry. I've noticed object symmetry isn't as foolproof. And then let's finish up these teeth. Let's extend this edge loop here. And sometimes if that autofill isn't working, I'll just make like a really small sort of face. I don't know, I just deleted those. Boom, boom. And then just drag it into the spot that it needs to be. Sometimes that makes Maya know it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is where you want that to be. And then let's push this down here. And next up, let's get this. Oh no, all right, let's do that. Boom, boom. And then let's pull this one over here. Then I'm just gonna hold tab and drag that out. I don't know what the Blender equivalent will be, but there will be one, I'm sure. And there we go, there we go. So that's the main stuff right there. And then we might need to figure out something though here. Actually, I might need to divert this a little bit, because one of the big silhouettes that I've forgotten about to this point is, the whole ring sort of aspect of it, right? So let's get this going here. Let's go here, here. That symmetry is really fighting me. Okay, there we go. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. I'm just eyeballing this. I'm not trying to be super perfect with it. And this. So that's all right. But usually when you get one of these triangular things, sometimes the shading can get weird again. We'll see. We'll see when I press 3 on that and do a smooth shading of it. And then let's also extend this, Very nice, very nice. And then, so the rest of that's looking pretty good. I would just soften up the silhouette of this. And let's get this corner detailed out. And this is another tip that's more for organic stuff. But if you ever have some edge loops that are like too detailed in one spot and you're trying to reduce the amount of detail for poly count purposes or something, like think of the forehead of a character, right? Versus like the face with like the eyes and like the nose and stuff. Like that's all got to be really detailed. Forehead's not as detailed, right? So let me finish this part up real quick. Boom, 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 boom. And then I'll show you what I'm talking about. There we go. Oops. And then I might need to add an edge loop here just for like think about the silhouette right there. Like that's lacking in comparison to the smoothness of this. So let's do that. And then if you hold shift and do some relaxing, it really eases out the edge loops, but anything that's like retaining a certain shape, you want to be careful not to accidentally relax that into not describing the shape anymore. But yes, that's the main shape. And then I'm just going to mirror this over. Let's also turn off live surface. And I'm just gonna hide that. I'm gonna do mesh mirror. Boom, and then we're gonna do axis object, and we're going to do positive. There we go, and then let's turn down the merge threshold on that border. There we go. And then I always test to make sure that it merged that together. Let's do off. Boom. Yeah, looks like they merged. Nice. But yeah, so let's unhide that disk shape and then make that live again, and then do some more quad draw. But yeah, again, this is more for Object X. Actually, let's do topology. Select that edge. This is more for hard surface stuff, or sorry, organic stuff. But if you want to reduce the amount of poly count on something like this, we're fine because I can just extend each of these and be good. But like if you, like I was saying on that forehead example, what you need to do is you'll end up combining some of these edge loops, right? So, oops, not that. There you go. It would be this. So see how this loop is now going in here. So now what was 1, 2, 3, 4 edges is now just 1, 2 right there. So that might be handy in some of your models that you'll find is redirecting the edge flow like this, and then you have you'll lose some poly count that you don't need on like a less detailed surface, you know. So that's something else to think about. But for us, I'm just going to finish this out. Going across here. Boom, 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 boom. There we go. And that is all messed up. Let's exit this and then let's turn off that and then do that whole mirror thing again. Mesh mirror. Object. Positive. Turn down that merge threshold. Boom. There we go. And then let's go back into quad draw. Let's do symmetry. Let's do just object X again. And yeah, we could just relax some of that or manually move this. It looks like it's fused together in there. Let's fix that. There we go. So yeah, so now it's nice and smooth. And then now you're good to turn off that disk. And then when you go into face mode, I'm just gonna hold tab and left click drag and select that. And I'm gonna extrude inward. Then I'm gonna offset in a little bit as well. And then let's turn off wireframe on shaded. Boom. Let's go to mesh display, soften edge. And if you're getting real high poly, I would start adding bevels to this right here. I'll show you what that looks like. Actually, no, I'm going to show you the default method. I would just select all my edges like this. And wherever you can find this sort of option, we'll be messing with the normals, right? So I would just set this to be hard edges right there. That way they still shade smoothly in those corners, but then it gets a real harsh fall off right there, you know? And whatever we will be doing for this, I don't know if these are gonna be fused together at some point. But I would select that mouth and extrude that inward as well. And I might even just select the bottom one. Kind of like, ooh, let's turn off that. There we go. And then select this one and do a similar thing. I'm just kind of overlapping these so we get like a nice pinch in there between those two mouthpieces, right? And then yeah, so that's how I would solve it for like a low poly thing. But then if we're doing high poly, we would do mesh display, soften edge, and everything's all like gummy, right? But I would go in and start beveling some of these. I would have spent more time kind of straightening out some of these faces, but then you would add a bevel, turn down that fraction, and then up the segments to 2. That way you get 3 edge loops for each of those like sharper edges. And then if we press 3, boom, you see that? Now I can tell that I have some sort of weird geometry happening in here. Let's turn off this. Yeah, there you go. So that's what's causing that. Let's check this one as well. That one looks pretty good. Yeah. But yeah, so now see how smooth that is right there. So that'd be for like true hard surface modeling. And look, the teeth are holding up decently. That's because another one of those little mistake, thanks, but they're holding up decently, and the reason is that because of those retaining edge loops right there, right? So if we wanted that to be even sharper, boom, I would just go into both of these and bevel those as well and add an extra segment. Boom, and there you go. So now it's nice and it's kind of hardening that edge. You might need to bring that in. And say if you wanted these teeth to be sharper in the silhouette of them there to match that, you'd probably have to add more retaining edge loops in this direction, right? So cut across there, but this could potentially introduce some more shading issues as well. But it's all a matter of guess and check. So see how that's sharper now, but now this is a little bit too creased right here. You have to go in and probably cut down across this and combine it like down there or something. But yeah, so that's just how I would approach a face like this. Again, for our purposes, you probably only need to do the hardened edge type thing. Right there. I'm gonna do, yeah, there we go. Probably only need to do that. And then same for this stuff. Boom. Because you're gonna have some sort of stylized shader on there. And yeah, so that's how I'd get that face. All right, thanks for watching.